Hey everybody, Scoutcrafter here again. It's Monday, Mishmash Monday. We've got a few things to talk about. Hope you had a great weekend, by the way. Today I wanted to talk about, one of the things I love about this channel that I like to do is to reintroduce people to things that they took for granted. A lot of things we always do. It's human nature to take things for granted, and we always do. And some of the things I like to reintroduce you to and make you look at it in a different light, to see and say, wow, I never thought of that as being something interesting, or I always took it for granted, never even thought about it, like the slip joint pliers or something. I want you to take a different look at common, ordinary items. And today, we're going to be talking about the humble trouble light. Now, it's funny about the trouble light. We kind of have a love-hate relationship with them. I'm sure anybody that's ever used one, they do have their benefits, but they also came with a bunch of problems surrounding the trouble light. When you drop it, if you don't have a rough service bulb in there, the trouble light would cease to work right in the middle of your job. We've all had the issues with them, but it's something that we've grown up with, and everybody's had one, or had one in the shop, or used one under the car, and, sometimes it's a necessary evil, but they've been pretty much replaced today with battery-operated lights and things like that. But, I always found the old ones interesting. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, one of the early examples, the predecessors of what we consider today's modern trouble light, was the simple caged light, and this came very early in the 1870s, after the first light bulb Edison was credited with creating, although light bulbs did go back 70 years before, but they were carbon arc light bulbs. The standard light bulb as we know it today, with the tungsten filament, the vacuum bulb, they were very fragile because they were hand-blown glass, and so they invented just a simple cage that would surround the light, that it would stop it from banging in and breaking off. Now, this particular one is a clamp-on light, but they had ones with handles, and the early ones had, as you would think, wooden handles. Now, here is an example of a wooden handle early, probably from about the 40s or 30s or 40s. This was a wooden handle. You could see it was made of wood, and the cage, the heavy duty. I mean, this is heavy duty, so when this thing bent, you know that it was under tremendous force. But again, it wasn't as accessible to change the bulbs. You still had to take off the cage itself, open it up, and this would flip open, and then you would change this one here. It did have the shield in the back, and the shield was a great part of the invention of the trouble light, because, as you know, anybody that has held a light, you get blinded by it. So by putting the shield on the back, it directed the light in one direction without blinding you under the car in a dark area and ruining your night vision. But this was an early wood one with a nice eagle switch on there. You could see it says Eagle on there, and it's it still works today. We're going to restore this one. Now, the modern trouble or work light looks very much like this here. And something, you might say, plastic junk, but they're very lightweight, and they do the job. This is extremely lightweight. I can't tell you how light this is, but it is strong. It does the job. It's easy to change the bulb. There's nothing wrong with it, although if it gets stepped on or something, it's done. But I use this. This one has a reel on it. I keep this one by the burner just in case, if you have to get in there or something. However, years ago, things were made a little bit differently. They were made a little bit stronger. And although they were, like I said, they were heavy and whatnot, there's just something about them that is super attractive. And let me show you what I mean. Now, this, on the other hand, look at the size of this. This thing is a monster. These are industrial trouble lights. Some are rated as explosion proof. They usually have a little bit of even a more heavy duty look. I have a couple of those. This is, without a doubt, I mean, look at this. But this is the one we're going to be cleaning up today and turning this into a a lamp from my house, I mean, because, you're not going to use this in a real world environment. With today's cars, you couldn't even stick this underneath the car. Everything's so tight, you couldn't even get this in there. But what we're going to do, first thing we're going to do is we're going to clean up the cord here. Okay, you see the cord. Look at that. And what we're going to use is we're going to use goop on here and hand cleaner and a little bit of, and this is a good cord. This is a 16.3 American Mustang. You could see there. It's a good cord, good quality cord. It's just dirty. We're going to clean it up. We're going to clean up the globe. We're going to put in a steampunk light bulb. And let's have some fun with this. Now, here is another McGill light. I believe this one is rated for explosion proof because it does have the threaded globe that threads into there. But I'm going to show you how, when you buy a trouble light, believe it or not, this is the way they come. They come like this, and sometimes they'll come with a plug end, but that's it. A lot of times they don't come with the cord attached, so you have to do that. And I'm going to show you what it takes to put a cord when you get a new trouble light like this particular one here. And you can see this has Bakelite handle. It's a beauty, isn't it? So let's take it apart and I'll show you. There's really not much to it. Now, once you loosen up the screws here, you can see the cage comes off here. There is a rubber protective grommet. This is an anti-roll device too, because you can see the nibs on there. Make sure that it won't roll when you put it down, which is nice to have. And then you have your screw-off bulb. This is indeed explosion-proof, or what they call vapor-proof. You could see it written right there. I'll see if I can get it so you can see it with the light. You see it says vapor-proof right there, so it is indeed. Now you can see there's a gasket here underneath that again stops it, any gas from getting in here. And these two screws come off, and this pinches the line, the cord, so it acts as like a strain relief. And you can see when you screw this out, there's a little rubber that pulls out, and this will go around the cord and hold it there tightly so it doesn't, it acts as a strain relief. That's a good thing to have, and that's it. All the cord goes in. I'll show you how. Now, once you unscrew, these two just hold the socket in place. You see they're little clips there. Once you take them out, the socket itself pulls right out, lifts right out, and here's where your line attaches, your cord attaches on here. Now, normally they call for 16.3. This is, like I said, it's a Bakelite, it's a Proud. It only requires two line, a hot and a neutral, because you don't need a ground, because there is no way to ground this too. It is, like I said, a Bakelite. It doesn't, there's no way that you can come in contact with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take what I like to use is an extension cord. And I'll tell you, years ago, I would like to make up my own extension cords, things like that. I would go to Home Depot, and you could see you could pick up a nice cord. This is a 12-3. The first number 12 is the gauge of the wire, and the 3 stands for how many strands are inside that wire. But you see how thick this is. This is a very cord. And what this is cords I have hanging around my shop to power different things, but I would make it up. But cord has gotten so expensive. Any kind of wire that you buy can run like $1 a foot or more, and it's very expensive. So I'll show you an economical way to get cord for things like trouble lights. Now, the most economical way to, anytime you're making your own extension cords, trouble lights, things like that, is to buy an extension cord. And the reason is because it already has 2 ends on it, and also it's usually cheaper to buy this than if you were to go and try and buy this cord alone at like a Home Depot or something. I don't know why it is that way, but it is. And one thing about this I got on Amazon, and it's fairly cheap. It's a 14 gauge. You could see here, it's 14 gauge, 3-strand. It's rated at 15 amps at 125 volts, which is 875 watts, which is 10 times more than the wattage I'm going to run. It has no extension cord, no plug on the handle, so I don't ever have to worry about it. But, you don't want a little strand wire coming out of there, because it's, this is all for looks, for show, and you want something a little bit beefy, a little industrial looking. So we went with this. It's a great cord. I have actually 2 of these, and what's nice about this is oil resistant. Now, oil resistant is different than a lot of people think. And what oil resistant means is that if you get oil on this extension cord, which a lot of times you do, or any petroleum product, it will not crack and make the cord brittle, things like that. If you do not have oil resistant cords and you get oil on them or anything like that, what happens is it actually eats through the outer coating. And I found this out because we had to have oil resistant shoes when I was working at the MTA, because If you didn't, your shoes would last 3 months and the soles would literally disintegrate, fall apart. So oil resistance, very good to have for things like that, especially trouble lights. So let me show you what we're going to do, how we're going to put this Now, one of the hardest things you're going to do here, because it just goes against everything that you feel, is to take a perfectly good brand new extension cord, count off however many feet you want, and then take a pair of lineman cutters and cut it. Oh man, that goes against everything that you got to do it quick. You can't think about it because you'll sit there and go, gee, I don't should I, do I have enough? Just do it. And now this is what we're going to use for the cord. I know for some of you this might be a little bit basic knowledge, but we can't take anything for granted here because some people maybe never dealt with electronics or electrical components before. But there are basically two types of wires that we use, we come in contact with. One is a solid wire, like this is a solid wire, copper wire. They're the same gauge, these are the same size wires, and this is a stranded. Now, we stripped it off and we twisted this. Now, a lot of times when you wanted to make a connection to a screw, you would take your pliers like this, your needle nose, and you would bend this around like this and make a nice little U like this, and put this around the screw, and there's you go. You know, you tighten it up, and you always tighten it with the end to the right so that it locks itself in. But if you tried to do that with a stranded wire, you see what happens is, first of all, it's kind of a sloppy kind of connection, and then this gets all flattened out if you ever tried it, and I'll show you what it looks like. Now, the reason we have the solid and the stranded is because the solid is made for inside homes or pipes or things like that where it's not going to be moved at all. It's solid, it's okay. It can be bent like this once or twice. It's not meant to be bent flexible. A stranded cord or wire is meant that it goes in an extension cord that could be moved back and forth, and it has it's much more flexible and made to be flexed. Now, here we have some vintage Leviton. Oh, how nice is this, huh? Look at this. Beautiful Leviton. Here's a nice switch. Again, new silent switch, new old stock. And here is some outlets. You can see here, new old stock. These are 5320s. And I have a collection of these because I can't stand the child resistant, the ones with the plastic in there. I just hate them. Anyway, maybe some of you electrical guys can tell me why. Now, you can see here, here's a standard, you know, your outlet here. Here's your standard switch. And a lot of times here, you got to get this on the screw here. Now, if you're using the solid core wire, it's no problem. This will slip right over and you tighten that up and, you know, it's beautiful, right? But if you tried that with the stranded wire, let me show you what a lot of your better quality components will have little, you see here, there's a kind of an indent in here that kind of hold the wires from spreading out too much. But here we have a stranded wire in here, and as we're tightening it up, as you can see what happens, what always will, look at the end of the wires there. They'll start to spread out like that. And the more you tighten it, you got to make these tight. Any electrical component has to be tight, but you see what happens. You get that kind of squishing of the electric, you know, of the wires. And it's never, look, it'll work, but it's not really, you know, I don't like it. I'm sure a lot of electricians were taught the same way, you know. So there's a couple ways we can combat that as amateur homeowners. Let me show you. You can take one of your solderless crimp connectors, okay, and you can get the appropriate size. Here you can see I put the wire up to the top. This is a ratcheting crimper, which is always nice to have, and you could put this into here like this. You see the yellow, the yellow color matches up with the yellow. Press it in here, and this is ratcheting. As you squeeze it, it'll ratchet down, and then when it's complete, it'll release, and you have your crimp connector on there, and that is solid, and you could do it that way. And there are some electricians that do that. Here we go. You can put that on like this, screw it down, and there you go. You have a clean connection. Another way you could do it is you can strip just a section of the wire here. Leave the insulation on the tip here. Twist it around a little bit. Remember, the insulation is on there. Twist this around a little bit so it don't. You see? Now you got that. Now you could slip that around here like this. Okay? You can bend it around your connector here, bringing it down like this, tightening it up, and you could leave that little tail or cut it off. Okay, now you see we tightened it around here. It's nice and tight. Now you can either leave this tail on, some people do, or you can take your diagonal cutters and you could just cut this off. There you go. And you can see here, now you have a tight, it's not fraying out, and it's a solid connection. And that little, remember that little piece of insulation held that wires together from spinning out, but that's acceptable. Another way I've seen people do it is you can take the extra long, strip it extra long. Again, it's twisted tightly at the end here. It's twisted around, you can see here. And then wrap it around your screw like this. When you have it nice and bent like this, you bring it over the wire here. You see how it crosses over? And then tighten that down. And then... Again, this is without leaving the insulation on, but by tightening that and holding that down, keep your thumb on here like this as you tighten it down, and that'll stop any wire from traveling. There we go, nice and tight. And then you could, again, cut off this little tail with your diagonals here like this. Get it good. You don't want to nick any good wires. There we go. And then, there we go. Nice, tight, and tucked in. See how that looks? Now we're ready to, what we're going to do is, instead of trying to wrap this around the screw and not have it fray out because it is a stranded cord, we're going to tin this with a little bit of solder, and I'll show you why that helps. Now, you don't have to tin the entire wire, but you just want to get the cap here, because when you twist it around the screw, you won't have those strands spreading out. Now, when you tin the tip of the wire, just like we did here, after you're finished and you're ready to go, you just snip off that part right there. And look how neat that is. You know, you don't have that wire spraying out like you normally do when it's stranded. That's the way I like to do it. Keep it nice. Now, here's where the discussions really help them. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm not an electrician, but we do have electricians that do follow the channel. And I'd like to know what your preferred method of attaching stranded wire to a screw terminal. So let us know in the comments. Help us all out, because we can use the professional knowledge. And this is, you know, the pros always have shortcuts and good ways to do things. But I appreciate any help that you can give. Okay, there we go. We're both sides are done. Now, always remember, black goes to brass. White, or your neutral, goes to silver. So if you ever forget, just always remember, black goes to brass. And let's everything reinstalled. It's usually at this point of the job that you realize that you forgot to slip this cap over the cord, and you already have that molded end on there. But I didn't do it this time because I was really aware of it. But now this just gets screwed onto the bottom. We have the strain relief in there, and Bob's your uncle. Okay, here we go. Successfully rewired. Here I put in a vintage. I'm going to change it to more filaments, but you see we're limited in what kind of bulb you can put in here because of the explosion-proof light. Some of them even were low voltage lights, and they had a transformer on them running on either 24 or 34 volts, and that was usually in wet locations where if you ever dropped it in water or something, you didn't have to worry about electrocution. But here you can see we have a neon. That's a vintage 1950s neon orange bulb in there. And now that only uses half a watt maybe, or if that much. But it does look nice lit up at night or whatever. But I will put a cage filament bulb in there. But you can see how nice it is, how easily these are rewired. And it's a nice little decorative addition. Now, here is the first trouble light that we fixed up. We cleaned the cord, like I said, with Goop hand cleaner, cleaned the whole light up, and we put one of those decorative bulbs in there. Let me show you what this looks so nice about this is you can hang it from a chain, or you can hang it either from the cord, because it does have a strong strain relief. Let me show you what it looks like. Now, here I have my little homemade dimmer station, and basically it's a piece of that PVC, shows the voltage right now. We're putting 60 volts in there, and you can see what it looks like, you know, but I'm going to drop it down a little bit here. We got it 40 volts. You can see how that looks. Now you start to see and also here's an indicator too, this little bulb here, but we'll drop it down to, here's 20 volts, and you can see what that looks like. You know, it's just a pleasing look. You can see all the filaments. It just looks kind of steampunkish. And here we go. This is how they would be displayed in the house. You can see here. Let me dim that out a little bit. You can see. Very nice looking, aren't they? I love that kind of industrial look. Okay, so in closing, hope today helped out a little bit. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks very much for tuning in. Take care now. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.